This is Lynn Liaz, and I have Bob Kudla with Trade Genius on with me today. And just yesterday, Trump decided to go ahead and initiate the bombing of Syria. And of course, I'm sure most everyone knows about that by now. And when I checked a while ago, the latest was that we were kind of just waiting to find out how Russia was going to respond to this. And so I think everybody's pretty curious what their response is going to be. How will it affect us? What could potentially happen? And more. And so Bob and I were talking about it, and I'd like for him to share his opinions and thoughts on the matter. Bob, thank you for joining
Hey,
me.
hey, Lynn, how are you doing today? And yeah, so this story goes back, well, quite a long way, and it's the chemical weapons thing is really an excuse, and so there's a couple things at play here. One is that if you recall, there's been a change in the leadership in Saudi Arabia, and there's been a rapprochement, and the younger soon-to-be monarch, is very interested and anxious to modernize his nation. And I'm not making a moral judgment here. I'm just making an observation because you know it's all relative. But he knows that he needs the United States desperately, and he knows that Israel and the United States are basically tied at the hip. And so and he also knows that Israel and Iran are an enemy. So it's the enemy of my enemy is my friend. And so you have this Sunni Shia um, conflict that's come to the fore in Syria. And then to complicate this is that you have um, the need for Europe. Europe is basically, for whatever reason, is in an energy deficit. They can't, or they won't, or they're not willing to produce enough energy on their own. And so now you have really three competing sources for energy. You have the Middle East, you have Russia, and believe it or not, the United States is now starting to ramp up exports to Europe too. And so you have the Russians who, looking at the world as Russians always do, they have no moral compass other than their own best self interests. You can say that about the United States anymore, too. And so they're like, hey, if I can control the pipelines into Europe, I can control Europe. And the United States and Britain and France, ironically, none of us, those three countries, are even exposed to the Russian gas needs because France is nuclear. England gets a lot of their oil and natural gas from Norway, and they're getting more from us. For whatever reason, is that they've frozen Central and Eastern Europe, and now the United States and they're going back to the old Cold War mentality. So you have oil and you have religion mixing, and I think there's um, an end game here with we're gonna push the. You have to realize too, Syria is a Sunni majority nation with a Shia in charge, and so they're going to try to push the Shia out of power in Syria, and that takes the pressure off of Israel, and it also provides an outlet for these pipelines to go right through Syria into Turkey. That then frames Turkey up to be more friendly to the West, and so this is what's going on here. And then people say all the time, and you have to understand too, is uh, from a geopolitical standpoint, Russia has limited options, Lynn. They're not the Soviet Union of old. Their demographics are aging. Their population is falling. Their country is a kleptocracy. Basically, the richest 100 families have basically carved the country up for themselves, and I don't think there's a stomach in it for a big fight. And plus, they have a limited ability to what they call project power. So what they can do is they're not going to do nuclear. We know that already. Nobody's going to do nuclear. That's what they worry about Iran being going nuclear. But they can screw with us in cyberspace, and they could screw with us by projecting power through Iran. So those are the two areas that I would look for the response, to have them try to do something from a cybersphere point of view in the United States or one of our allies, or have Iran do some terrorist activity against us. So that's where we are with that. But I think Russia is going to lose this. And then you and I always talk about this. This Ezekiel 38 is sitting there. So it's always fascinating to me is what's the hook that brings Russia down, and maybe being totally embarrassed and shown that they don't have the chops to compete. Maybe it forces them to do something radical and try to take Israel out of the picture. Because in Ezekiel 38, you got the Persians and you got the Gog and Magog tied together. So I think it's kind of fascinating to see if that's a follow-on effect as well.
Yes, and a lot of people too are probably curious, what can we do to be better prepared when we stand in the face of danger, when something does happen? What can we do to be more prepared financially, food, just everything? I think we should all be prepared for whatever happens. And even those of you out there who don't necessarily think that you need to be prepared because the rapture is going to happen or whatever, look at all the people who face situations daily, destruction from natural causes such as earthquakes, tornadoes, hurricanes. We should all be prepared. And Bob, that's kind of where you come in. And in fact, you have a special this month with how can people better prepare themselves through Trade Genius.
Well, Lynn is, and you're one of my first interviews I did when I started Trade Genius. And for people who don't know who I am, is I've been trading for a long time, since 1990. I've had a trading signal service since 2011. We expanded it and branded it Trade Genius in early 2016. And Lynn and I have been talking about this for quite some time. It is, you have what's called the solar minimum happening, and you have these geopolitical events happening. And one of the things, if you're a U.S. based person, is that you kind of have the benefit of having the ocean to protect you a little bit, but it doesn't protect you from these God center events in terms of weather and climate and things of that nature. And so what's happening, Lynn, is it's starting to bear fruit now in 2018. This is going to be the third wet and cold spring for Europe. And this year, Canada, they can't put a crop in the ground. I think almost last week, the entire country of Canada was below freezing. This is the coldest spring on record since they've been keeping records in the United States and Canada. You can't get the wheat crop in the ground yet. Canada can't put anything in the ground. So you have food prices going up. And this is one of the things that we focus on. We watch the commodities. And what we're seeing, Lynn, is we're seeing a change in the stock market. And this is one of the reasons why people come to us at Trade Genius is that we see these secular trends and put people in positions where they're buying the right things and getting out of the wrong things. In December, gold stopped bottoming against the stock market. And so that's one of the things that we're focused on, is getting people in the silver miners, gold miners, and start positioning yourself that way. Number two is that Bitcoin had a rocket ride in 2018, 2017 until they opened the futures market, and then kind of slid down here until last week. And now institutional players, big institutional players, are starting to buy. And just the other day, you had $1,000 move on Bitcoin, 28%, move in some of these coins in a week. And that means what people are doing, Lynn, is they're shifting out of the stock market. And what's going to happen to people who aren't paying attention or following people like us is that their financial advisors is just going to tell them to just ignore all this stuff. And eventually it's going to erode their ability to feed their family. Last week, rice is at the highest price it's been now in 5 years. Wheat prices are going up. Corn prices are going up. China can't afford that. We laughed about the tariffs. Everybody was talking about, oh, our farmers can't sell soybean because the tariffs. Well, you can listen to the news and lose money. You can listen to us and make money. We knew that China, they can't afford to tariff the soybeans. That's like adding a tax to food on their people. They can't produce enough. So what we do is we have a service. We have training classes. We have software that we give people, and it's at tradegeniusacademy.com. And Lynn, always for your listeners that we try to have a special when you and I talk. And so they can use the promo code Liaz, and it's 50% off the price in the store, and they can take advantage of it and be able to enjoy some of the things that we share. We have specials, we have bundles, we have software, and it's a really good service, and we help people make money. Last week, we help people navigate through a really weird week in the stock market. So we can be macro view, and we can be right down there trading people in the trenches, helping people make the correct decision. And at the same time, we train you. You can train yourself. We provide software that you can trade on your own, or you can be in chat rooms and you can get our signals directly to you. So that's how we do. We help people. But make no mistake about it, Lynn, there's a shift in the market, and you have a move away from, you saw the FANGs, right? You saw the whole Facebook debacle. People are going to move away from that in tech. They're going to move away from banks. The banks reported yesterday, and they all sold off, Lynn. Is that, yeah, yesterday, today's Saturday. Days are blurring. And they're all moving into cryptocurrencies, gold and silver, and the miners, and other commodities. Oil has not gone down. It keeps moving higher. And so that's telling me that people are worried about the ability and the stability of our dollar. So we want to help people be in a position to be able to afford to live, because we want to get them into the right thing. So come join us at the Academy, and take advantage of the offer. It's a killer deal, and you'll be able to learn to make money nearly every day in the stock market by following what we're doing.
Bob, you have been with me for a long time, and I just want to let the listeners know that you're a Christian. You're very much so on top of things with Bible prophecy, and you're very interested in Bible prophecy. And your area of expertise that you really take an interest in is global cooling, which I think our first show was about that. Everybody's so worried about global warming, but it's actually global cooling that people need to be concerned about. I remember that was a very interesting video we did too. So I just wanted people to know that. And for those of you listening, the information will be posted in the video description beneath this video, where you can contact Bob at and check out Trade Genius. And I will also post it in the comments. It will be pinned at the very top for those of you who have trouble locating the video description section. Bob, do you have any final thoughts or words you want to share before we end the program here?
Yeah, it's just that, I think the calm markets are behind us now, and I think with the global cooling, the geopolitics, the election, this whole war between the people versus the deep state, I think things are going to get pretty radical, and surprises are going to come out of the woodwork. And you just need to really be paying attention, have a mentor, and follow people like yourself. Hopefully, come watch what we do, and so we can help you guys guide through this calmly. Remember, when you're prepared, you're not anxious, and so that's my encouragement to everybody.
Amen. Thank you so much, Bob. And again, those of you listening, please go check out Bob at Trade Genius. And the information again is posted right below the video as well as in the comments. And I always enjoy having you, Bob. And thank you. I know you've got a very busy schedule yourself, and I always appreciate you helping to support me by sponsoring me, and by taking the time to stop what you're doing in your busy day and do a show with me and inform my listeners with your knowledge. And I appreciate it.
Oh no, always thank you for having me on. I'll look forward to talking to you next month.
All right. Thanks so much, and God bless you.
Yes, him to you, Lynn. Thank you. Bye bye.